Hello, I'm probably out of focus, but we're going to try this. So I want to talk to you today about something called East Kingdom Royal Rounds. They are fun to do, but involve a little bit of thinking. If you're just a thrower, you won't have to worry about this quite as much as if you're a marshal. So what is an East Kingdom Royal Round? An East Kingdom Royal Round can be comprised of as many as 24 weapon throws. Those weapons are spears. I have 4. They can also be axes. I have 4. And they can be knives, of which I have 5. So the way it normally works is there are 2 distances that you can throw. One is the short, and the short goes from a 10-foot line from the target, and I'll explain the soft target in a minute. But for axe and knife only, 10 feet to 20 feet is your first range. For your second one, and I don't know if you can see it, but there is another line back here, which is the 20-foot mark, and that goes from 20 to 30 feet. So each weapon can be thrown at the short range, the 10 to 20, and at the long range, 20 to 30. Spears are a little different. I'll get to that later. Each weapon, at each distance, you're allowed up to 4 throws. And so 4 from the short, 4 from the long, 4 axes from short, 4 from long, 4 spears from short, 4 from long. All right, so the difference between spear and axe is spears are considered to bounce a little bit more, and you have to factor in one of 2 things. Do I have a soft target, which is the long target, further back target, the white one with the very classic pizza box target set on it, or do I have a hard target? If I have a hard target and I don't have the option of a soft target, my minimum distance is 20 feet for my short throw. If I have a soft target, I can shorten that distance to 15 feet. So if, as you look at my targets, the hard target set at 10 feet from the line, and the soft target is set back 5 feet for 15 feet. That would be my short range for both that would be my short range from this line, would be my short range for the soft target. It would also be my short range, as I said before, for my knives and my axes. And for from the 20-foot line, which would then become the 25-foot line, that's the long for my spear. And that is actually true for hard target or soft target. Long distance is 25. Or you could say 25 to 35 or 25 to 30. Really with spear, it's not like you have to deal with a rotational factor like you do with knives and axes. So why do I have 4? Well, first off, let's think about how you're going to approach your royal round. Some people like to start at their hardest. That's what I do. I start at my hardest throw first. Some people like to start at their short. You are allowed 2 rounds of calibration of no more than 4 weapons per round. So if you come to the line with 4 knives, you get to calibrate with 4 knives, 4 axes, 4 spears. So it's beneficial to have all those on hand if you can, or borrow some. So you would, generally the way a royal round will start is you'll be doing your practice. You feel pretty good, feel warmed up, you're ready to put some numbers on the board. So you're got a car coming away. So you're gonna tell the marshal, I'm ready to start my royal round. So you could say, Marshal, I'm ready to start my royal round. Theoretically, at this point, you've already figured out what your best distance is for wherever you're going to start, and you're going to begin your royal round. Once you've begun your royal round, the only way to end it is to stop throwing or to scratch. I'm notorious for scratching, but that's another story. How does it then proceed? So and you can throw in any order. You can throw long knife and then switch to, you can throw long knife and then switch to long axe. You can switch from long knife and switch to long spear. The order doesn't matter. And in fact, you don't even have to do every weapon from every distance. Let's say you have a shoulder that really doesn't allow you to throw from long distance. It's okay to throw from short for everything. Or if you don't own spears, you can't find any, you can throw just knives and axes. In fact, if you do it right, you can throw a one-throw royal round. Your score is not going to be great, but that's you're getting on the books if you want to have one in. So I want to talk a little bit about the targets as far as, here I come, as far as what we deal with. We are looking at targets that are hard, and this one you can tell has been a little chewed up, but if you look at it, the center circle is 3 inches, the next circle is 8 inches, and the outer circle is 14 inches. Hopefully I remember that correctly. And the same would be for our pizza box target with the foam backing. Those circles can be drawn fairly easily if you make a little template. And that's my template. I do have to switch it around. Some people have cutout circles. The other thing you can have is a stick like this, where your Sharpie will go in here. And I'm sorry. Yes, the Sharpie goes in here, and you can put a nail at the 3 inches, at the 8 inches, or the 14. This one was set up to draw a whole series of circles, but you get the idea. So how does that work? For an East Kingdom Royal round, the center circle is a 3 points. The middle circle, or the 8-inch circle, is 2 points. The outer circle is 1 point. If we were doing Twick, which is another story, the numbers are, instead of 3, 2, 1, they're 5, 3, 1. If you break the line on a throw, how do we do this? Okay, sorry, really shoddy camera work. If you break a line on the throw, let's say your axe lands here and is cutting into the 3, mostly into the 2, and partly into the 1, the score goes to the highest point value. In other words, it's designed to favor the thrower. So this would be if this were sticking in the target, this would be a 3-point throw. Obviously, this is what you really want to have, but we take what we can get. Same thing goes if it's barely outside the ring but still breaking the line. That's a 1-point throw. And it's really beneficial to you to have nice crisp lines. These are, where this one hasn't been used up. So you could actually tell, because there are times when that blade is just barely going to nick through that line, and you want to be able to be really firm on that. Some people use spray paint. It gets really fuzzy. Sorry. Okay, so the spray painted targets get really fuzzy. They're sometimes hard to read, and it makes it difficult, for me, it makes it difficult to say for absolute certainty that score was X or Y or totally no good. Obviously, if you miss the target or if it falls out of the target, you're looking at a 0 score for that. And once you begin, you throw in sequence. So I mentioned earlier having 5 knives. How would that work? Let's say I've already thrown my long knife and I'm happy with that score, and I'm going to stay in. I'm continuing my round, so I want to then change weapons or change distances. And you don't have to use the same knives. You could use 14-inch knives from one distance and 10 from another, whatever makes you most comfortable. But what you're going to do, and I have 5, so just pay attention. I'm going to come up to the target and I'm going to try to assess my rotation and my placement. So I'm going to make my throw. My rotation's pretty good. Actually, I'm pretty happy with those. Now, I'm throwing calibration, so none of that counts. But what I do want to do is mark my spot, finish my round. So at this point, I have told the marshal that I'm doing calibration. Those scores, no matter how beautiful they may be, that wasn't terrible, they're not going to count. So I've done my calibration. The marshal knows I've done my calibration. I now tell him one of two things has happened. Either I'm not happy with that round and I have to throw another round of calibration, or I've thrown my second round of calibration for up to 8 throws, 4 and 4, and I then have to continue my royal round, or I have to scratch my royal round. So in this case, I would say marshal, once he's told us to retrieve, I'll say, all right, throwing for score. Throwing for score, and then I will throw my scoring round. And invariably, if you've done really good on your calibration, sometimes things don't go the way you want. So, all right, now here's a major point. In throwing, you are allowed to do a score and retrieve. In this particular case, I'm going to grab the camera. In this particular case, the throw was, you can see it breaks, yes, it breaks that line. It's a 3, but it's also hanging, as you can see, right over the middle of the target. So we then do what's called a score and retrieve. The round will end. You will say, Marshal, I want to score and retrieve. The round is completed. You score. You say score and retrieve. He's going to come up, or she's going to come up, and he's going to look at this, and they will judge whether that's a 2 or a 3. Sometimes they'll call that a 2. Sometimes they'll call it a 3. I would have called that a 3 for you. You retrieve. That's your first of 4 throws. You're then going to go ahead, and when the next round starts, you're going to go with your next 3 knives. You're going to go back to your marker. They're going to call start the round, and then you're going to throw. And again, same thing that just happened. That was a much worse throw, but you see how it's sitting over the center of the target? For me, that is not an optimal throw. If I try to throw again, I have to work around that target. So those stuck. Sometimes it hits the sometimes it will hit the weapon that's already in there. 2 things can happen. Obviously, the first weapon will bounce off. Even worse, the first weapon that was in will be knocked out, so you won't get either weapon to score. You want to maximize your score. Spears are pretty much the same. One thing that happens with spears, though, and marshals need to watch this, is that often, or sometimes, that was a 2, that's a 2, that's a 1. So sometimes with spears, they will hit, and it won't be a really clean hit, and they will stick some and then drop. Well, that was actually not quite what I wanted. They will stick some and drop. Now the marshal then has to make a determination, is that spear still good or not? And the test for that is we take the score sheet, just one, and we try to pass it under the butt of the spear. If it can't pass under it without having to lift the spear, then it's considered no good. So this one, which is clearly resting on the ground because that's where I put it, would not be any good. That one, so that one's no good. This one, and this is a full clipboard, so like I said, it's just one sheet, but it passes under. But this would be a 2. The other one would have been a 0. That's the basics of how you're going to throw your royal round. Remember, it's 3 weapons, 2 distances, up to 2 distances. So 4 weapons at short, 4 at long. That's 8 per weapon. 3 different weapons. That's 24 throws, up to 3 points on a throw. So you could score as high as a 72. I would really love to see that. technically possible, pretty tough. So that's how you want to throw a royal round. Those are some of the things you want to consider on the royal round. There are standards for both the round size and the height of the round, as well as the distances. We talked about the distances, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. Height of the center of that target could be anywhere from 42 to 50 inches off the ground. So if we were to check this one, I think we're at around 43 and a half, 44. This one's a little taller, 47 to 47 and a half. Also, if you're a marshal and you're setting these up, a lot of your throwers have been practicing over and over and over again right for that 10-foot mark. So it's really important that you, minus the back of the board, it's really important before people start throwing that somebody comes in here and checks that distance. That's 10 feet. Oops. It's 10 feet. What I like to do is I'll pick a spear. These have been kicked around a little bit, so that one's actually a little bit far back, so I would have thrown off the average person. So what I would like to do is I set that at 10-foot mark. Move my target to the spear, and then that helps. It's not a perfect science. The targets are a little canted. They slope back a little bit, so determining what the exact center of that can be a little bit tricky. The wall targets, even the wall targets, unless you're in like a building, those are still canted back just a little bit. We do the best we can. Remember also that the slope of your field, the yard is reasonably flat, not smooth but flat. That also affects the throw. We've talked about that in the past, about rotation, height versus distance. If you're a marshal, and I'm covering a lot of territory, if you're a marshal and you're doing this, it's really helpful if you can have an assistant, one person to call the line, one person to run the score. The way I like to do that is if I'm the scorekeeper and I've got throwers A, B, and C, even though they may all start at the same distance, they might have different weapons. They're sharing weapons. One person's on the spear, one's on the knife, one's on the axe, or they can all be axes. Who knows? It doesn't take long for them to get out of sequence. One person may want to do multiple calibrations. One person's ready to fire and go, and they throw their full and walk away. The other person's being very deliberate, taking their time, doing their score and retrieves. All of a sudden, the next person's at the 20-foot, and this person's still at the 10-foot. That's fine. You're just going to have to do some mental math. One thing we like to do is, one thing we have to do is we have to keep the throwers at the same line. So when let's say thrower B has moved back to the long, I'm going to move all of the throwers to the long distance, 20 to 30 feet. Short people will have to wait. The short distance throwers, not short stature, you know what I meant. They're going to have to wait a little bit. But what will happen is we'll say, okay, ready? And I usually ask, especially, it's like, are you done calibrating, or are you throwing for score? You want to get that verbal communication going on back and forth. They say, I'm calibrating. You can go, okay, go ahead, throw from long. They throw their calibrations. This poor guy who's halfway through his royal round and doing well has to wait. It's harder just because your rhythm gets thrown off, but that's the way it works. So then you advance the entire line up to the short, even the person who threw long, and you're going to go, okay, so thrower A, you have thrown, let's see, two knives from short, correct? Correct. Okay, commence. They throw, they hit, and then when you're done, that's when you go, you score. Okay, thrower A threw 2 knives, check. Maybe they only threw 1 knife. If they only threw 1 knife because they hit the bullseye and want to do a score routine, it's like, okay, you threw 2, you just threw another 1 knife left. This knife is a 3. Write it down, talk to them, communicate. So 1 knife remaining. Thrower B, you were calibrating, retrieve. Thrower C, you were doing whatever. And you need to make sure you account for the ones on the ground. It's not uncommon for people to miss. Nobody likes to, but it happens. So, okay, how many did you throw? And they'll say I threw 4, and you only see 3 in the target. You go 3, and then you confirm. Okay, one goose egg. Be nice about it. They're putting themselves out there. We don't have to be mean to them. Okay, good. 2, 3, 1, 0. Okay, it happens. Even it happens to everybody, especially if your target has knots in it or it's torn up and it's old, it's raggy. The material of the target makes a big difference. Some people find these really beautiful rounds that happen to be maple. Axes despise those. So that's a little bit about how the round is run and how to run it slightly. I'm sure there's lots of questions. There's certainly room for more material on this, but I'm going to end that there. Thanks a lot. I hope to do another one about the strategy of throwing a roy around, but that will be later.